What's poppin'? It's Mello back at you with another video, and today we're gonna go over the 5. We're gonna go over the 5 beginner mistakes. So just sit back, let's get to it. But before we do, please click the like button. Thank you. Let's get it. Let's listen to this first example beat. What's wrong with that is the first producer mistake, which is off-key melodies. So I'm gonna break down what off-key melodies are. In music, when you pick the notes that you're putting in the melody, everything should be harmonious. Everything should fit together well, and it should sound good. One of the things that's a part of all melodic music is scales. What a scale is, when you hear something like C minor or C major, that's how you identify a scale, but a scale has a set of notes that sound good together harmoniously. So when you use the notes within that scale, everything sounds like it makes sense and it goes together. Now, when you don't know scales and you don't naturally have the ear, then you run into issues where you have a lot of clashing notes, a lot of bad harmonies, and things of that nature. So the first thing that you want to do is learn scales and use scales. Scales are the most basic, fundamental part of all melodic music. You don't got to learn a ton of music theory. I feel like that should be the bare minimum. I don't care what type of music you make, you should learn that. You don't even necessarily have to learn it, because guess what? Every DAW, anything you use to make music, 9 times out of 10, they got a feature built inside it to help you pick the scales and stuff like that. So if you go in FL Studio and you click view and then you go down, scale highlighting is one of the options. And now they have a bunch of scales, so it'll confuse you, but there are only 2 that you need to know. And it's the minor natural Aeolian or the major Ionian. Those are the only 2 that you need to know. Most contemporary music is made with these scales. And then you can click whatever notes you want to base the scale on. On my website, I have free MIDI scale helper. So what you can do is, before you get started composing, you can click the minor or major folder, pick what scale you want. We'll say C major scale. You drag it in and voila. You now have all these light gray notes that represent notes within the scale. Now, the one thing that I do want to mention, I do have a scales tutorial that'll teach you the basics about scales. Now, for another example, let's say you got a melody and everything is sitting the way that it's supposed to, but one thing is not. Now this, I would love to say it's a beginner example, but I could do a whole video just highlighting industry songs with off-key 808s. And it's the craziest stuff. I don't know how cats make it that far with off-key 808s. But for the 808s, it's a very simple fix. If you got a composition, what you want to do is go down to wherever the bottom of it is as far as the lowest notes in the composition you made, and match up the notes. Match up the 808 notes with the lowest note in the composition that's hitting at that time. So you see I'm dragging it to all the light gray ghost notes because those are the lowest notes in the composition. I'm gonna go up. Now the 808 is in key. Now the 808 is in tune with the bass of the composition. Now what we have here, we have the C minor scale helper, and we have a melody. Let's listen to the melody. Now you may ask yourself, what's wrong with that? It sounds in key. This is the second issue. The second beginner producer mistake that a lot of people just aren't aware of is you were using or making bad chord progressions. Now you may be a beginner and you're like, what is a chord progression? Well, let's stop, let's slow down, and let's just start with what a chord is. A chord is a set of notes stacked together that pretty much make a harmony. So from a basic standpoint, that's all you need to know about what a chord is. Now let's go into what a chord progression is. A chord progression is basically a series of chords. So with that, how do you make a good chord progression? So before we continue, I just want you to know, I have a video completely on chords, what chords just are and how you build them. I'll also have a video that's a follow-up to that about chord progressions. But on top of that, I have a bunch of other videos like a Chris Brown video, a Money Man video, and the most popular chord progression in rap. I got all types of videos giving you good chord progressions, but this is what you need to do. You need to pick a good chord progression. So first thing that you need to know, we're in a C minor scale. So the first tip, when you're making a chord progression as a beginner, whatever scale you're working in, that first chord should match the scale name. It's that simple. So if you were working in a C minor scale, you should make a C minor chord. So what that means is, boom, we have this note right here. That is a C. All the light notes represent notes in the scale. The way that you make a basic triad chord is you skip every other note in the scale. We skip that, boom, we land there, and boom, we land there. Now we have a chord. The second tip, I recommend only using chord progressions that are 2 to 3 chords. We're gonna make a 1/6 progression. So how do you do that? Well, we have to find the 6th note in the scale first. So this is a 1 chord. And again, you may be confused. Just follow me. Let's count up 6 notes. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That G is the 6th note. We're gonna skip every other note like we did. Now we have a 1/6 progression. So now with those same chords, you can then begin to play around with the rhythm of the notes and make a good little foundational melody or arpeggio. And now you can put a top melody on it, and you can also mirror the bass notes real low if you want to or whatever, and you'll have something like this. So that's the second tip. I do want you to know, when it comes to this melody stuff, I do have a lot of tutorials that you can check out. I even have a melody basic series that'll really school you and give you all the game on how to make really good melodies and just all the foundational information that you'll need. So we covered all of the melody issues for the most part. Now let's talk about some beat maker stuff. Let's give this example a listen. So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is it's off beat, and that's number 3. Your stuff be off beat, man. This is what the issue is. If you were trying to make some funky stuff and you are a MPC guy and you're making, like, you know, up-tempo hip hop stuff, like, it's cool to do the finger drums, and that's gonna be a skill you'll have to work on and cultivate and stuff like that. Even if you want it, if that's what you aspire to be, even on a trap tip, that's something you can definitely do. Just know you have a long path ahead of you. But guess what? Most of, if not all of, your favorite super producers, especially trap related, do not do the finger drumming. They just don't. And even when they do, this is the solution. This is the solution. Get ready. Quantize. They quantize the drums. So let me show you what quantizing is. You have this grid with all these lines. This right here is not on one of the lines. Same with this. It's a little bit further back. You go to the wrench and then you go to quantize. Right now we have step selected. Guess what? It drags that onto the line. So now everything is on time. Now, there are always going to be, in any DAW, different quantization settings. In FL Studio, you go to the folder and you can look at all of these, but step is usually the good one for FL Studio. Step and beat. I'm going to quantize the rest of these drums. Let's listen to it now. Now everything is on beat. Even if you play some of the melody with the keyboard, you definitely want to be hip to quantization, and sometimes you might slide some notes back by going to none, just to give it some humanization and stuff like that. But that takes care of issue number 3. So now let's pick this up, and we are on issue number 4 out of 5. Let's listen to this beat. All All right, man, we jamming. Now you're at the point where all the notes make sense, the chords make sense, everything makes sense except one thing. Your sound selection, which is number 4, sound selection. So this is gonna be very brief and the solution is very simple. It's 2 things that you need to do. Now the first, genres of music are defined by the drum samples. If you are making trap music, you want to have a good base of some of the foundational sounds of trap music. I'll give you an example. That snare is not it. Wow, you have to have heard that before. When it got hot through Young Chop, everybody was using it. What you need as a beginner, go and build up your sound catalog. They use a lot of the same sounds because those sounds work. That's what we're gonna do with the drums. Now, as far as the melody, this is the second thing as far as the second tip. Use good sound sources. Well, how do you know if something is a good sound source? And I'm talking about VSTs, one-shots, and all that stuff. When it comes to one-shots, you're gonna usually buy them from a producer whose sound you like and stuff like that. So you can pretty much trust that it's gonna be some good stuff in there. But when we talk about buying VSTs and stuff like that, I'm just gonna give you the game real quick. In FL Studio, you wanna be using Flex. Flex is the best sound resource within FL Studio. Very quickly, I also did a video with all types of free VSTs that have very top tier quality sounds. Check that out. Now, once you get out of stock plugins, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm just gonna keep it 500,000 with you. I don't care how it sounds, it's the truth. The more expensive it is and the more hyped it is, more than likely, the better the sounds are. Just keeping it 500,000. Another plugin that you could look at is Expand. It's a lower cost plugin. I would recommend keeping your eye on it all the time because you want to get it for a lower price, like $15, $10, because they'll do the sale every now and then. And you want to look at Plugin Boutique and just keep your eye on it all the time. It is a great sound resource for beginners because you'll see it's $99, but just wait and look for that joint to go at $15. Now, I know I said a mouthful, but let's listen to the beat how it is now. Listen to it with better sounds. Now, of course, not my best work, but the sounds work good. The one thing I do want you to know, I have 2 sound selection tutorials that you can definitely check out for a more in-depth explanation on sound selection and how you can improve your sound selection. This is the last one. We have a beat. Let's listen to it. So the 5th and final tip that I'm gonna go over is leveling, specifically a part of mixing, and that's where a lot of people mess up. A lot of people turn everything up all the way and there is no separation in volume between the melody, the kick, the snare, none of it. And then you'll have people ask questions like, well, how do I make my bass stand out more? How do I make my kick stand out more? You know, you have to level everything out. That's how you pretty much do it. That's the foundation of doing that. So I'm going to give you a basic principle that applies to most music, which is the melody volume should be lower than the drum volume. If you look at rock, if you look at EDM or any type of dance music, if you look at hip hop, as far as trap and boom bap, all that stuff, in most music, even pop, the drums are usually louder than the melody. So first, I'm gonna make sure the drums sit at one level. All right, so they're peaking at -6, that's cool. Now I'm gonna bring the keys in by ear. That's good for what I'm trying to do. It peaked at -17. So now what we're gonna do is listen to the melody by itself after I leveled it. So it's peaking around -10 as where the drums peak around -6. So with that, I have a lot of headroom and I have separation. So now if I want to say something like, wow, let's make the kick stand out more. So that pretty much covers tip number 5, which is basically creating separation between the melody and the drums. Tip number 6, Subscribe to your boy. Subscribe to your boy. Other than that, I'm going to be back with more tutorials and cook up soon. I'll see y'all another day. Somehow, some way, I'm out.